Hello and welcome. I'm Patrick Curtis, your host and chief monkey, and this is the Wall Street Oasis podcast. Join me as I talk to some of the community's most successful and inspirational members to gain valuable insight into different career paths and life in general. Let's get to it. In this episode, TarHeelMonkey shares his path from UNC to BAML. We understand what interested him in finance back when he was in 8th grade, why he didn't get a full-time offer in his first summer, and why he ended up transitioning into private equity after 1.5 years in banking. Enjoy. All right, TarHeelMonkey, welcome to the Wall Street Oasis podcast.
Thanks, Patrick. Nice to be here.
So it'd be great if you could just give the listeners a short summary of your bio.
Yeah, of course. Well, I grew up all over the world. I did my last years of high school in Sydney and middle school in India and kind of, grade school in Bentonville, Arkansas. All over the place. Very, very different environments all across the board. But got my interest in finance at a very early age, and so I went to UNC for undergrad and pursued finance, very sincerely and then very diligently as sort of my primary career pursuit, and was very fortunate to land as a sophomore intern at Bank of America Merrill Lynch, and had a phenomenal experience. Came back for another summer and transitioned into a full-time role as part of their power and renewables investment banking group, and did about a year and a half during that experience, and transitioned into sort of middle market, upper middle market private equity. And that's kind of where I am right now at a firm called Calera Capital.
Awesome. And tell me a little bit about why you're jumping all over the world. Was it family? Was it like military? What was the reason for jumping all over?
Yeah, it was just my dad's job. He used to work for Walmart, and we went to India for that opportunity, and kind of we got to go. Me and my brother got to go to the American Embassy School as part of that experience. It was a sort of top-ranked international school, and it was incredibly eye-opening. We were going to school with kids all over the world, and this was very shocking from a kid who grew up in Bentonville, Arkansas, where the town is 20,000 people, at most. And coming back to Bentonville after that experience was very underwhelming. Not a environment or kind of cultural context that we fit in with anymore, and so we were looking for kind of another international experience, broaden our horizons a little bit more. So that's what drew us to Australia. My dad found a better kind of career opportunity out there, and I went to the German International School in Sydney, Australia, which was also a unique experience. My graduating class was 12 people, including me. So again, just a very kind of outlier type of experience, I would describe it as.
It's very cool. I mean, the amount of the amount of traveling, amount of the world you saw in such such a young age is pretty cool.
It was definitely, it really developed my worldview to an extent that I never really thought I would get kind of in, a 10-year span before I even graduated high school.
That's awesome. So you kind of decided UNC. Why UNC?
Yeah, no, I was always focused on doing a business program as part of my undergrad experience, and I always knew, wherever I was in the world, I'd come back to the U.S.
Was that because your dad? Was that were you like finance and investment banking in high school, or where did you come across it?
Yeah, so it's I'd probably say I wanted to be in finance and built a passion for it kind of probably in the 8th grade.
Wow, early.
Yeah, very early. That's kind of when the financial crisis happened. And I was so curious and interested in this big, massive thing that went wrong, and everyone was talking about it, and I had no clue what everyone was talking about. So, the kind of curious mind that I had, I kind of looked into it and researched it, and that's how I got exposed to the stock market, trying to understand kind of what happened in the GFC. And that just had my my focus and attention, and from a learning standpoint, I just delved into it very, very deeply, all the way through high school. I started reading Bloomberg Business Week, just to be part of that world as much as I could, and would do kind of the virtual investing games. Yahoo Finance actually had a fantasy finance game for like 2 years that I took part in. That was a lot of fun. They canceled it. It was a fun competition thing,
That's
but
awesome.
I think just those
But
experiences
like, where
really
did
kind
you
of.
know, like back in eighth grade, were you like, I want to be an investment banker? Or you just
No.
you're back then you were just thinking, oh, this finance thing is interesting. And then as you
Yeah.
got through high school, tell me a little bit about did things kind of morph where you started actually understanding the industry, or did that not happen until you arrived at UNC and they started kind of
Yeah.
outlining the?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great question. I had no clue what investment banking was, even in high school. I actually, what I really wanted to do, what I'd honed in on was kind of M&A. That's what really had excited me through all of these kind of exploratory activities. And, I had like a kind of job shadow experience in my first 2 years of high school, at the kind of legal side of Walmart. And I talked to a couple M&A lawyers, and I was like, I want to do M&A law. And then I talked to a couple more people, and they're like, these lawyers, they don't actually do the deals. They just get stuck with paperwork. And I'm like, that doesn't sound exciting. And so I started asking, well, who's doing the deals?
Sounds like you talked
And
to
so,
some bankers.
exactly, exactly. So it's the bankers who do the deals. And so going into like my last years of high school, I got a very informal internship experience at the UBS Bank in Sydney, and saw the trading floor, and saw a little bit of investment banking. And I think that experience really solidified, like, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I really want to dedicate my life to, and build a skill set in. And so that kind of my senior year of high school, I kind of figured out at a very high level what investment banking is, and kind of coming into UNC, having that clarity was
What was
the
your life?
biggest.
What was your life like as a high school student with a class of 12, kind of having traveled for 2 years? Like, did you party at all? Was it like fun, or was it
No,
all just studying and nerd? Like, because that's what I was a nerd, like in high
no,
school.
I was the biggest nerd.
Okay.
I Yeah, it
It
was
sounds like
it
if
was
you're like at an eighth grader, like delving into the global financial
yeah,
crisis, like you had a different mind, a curious mind, which is good.
absolutely, absolutely. I didn't. It was definitely tough to relate to kids who were normal kids, quote unquote.
Yeah,
Um, and it was like we were all very close, kind of as part of that 12-person class.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But there were always activities that they were participating in that I didn't necessarily always participate in, kind of outside of school. I was
Like
trying to
binge
start.
drinking and stuff, and
Yeah, like they're going to parties and
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and stuff like that, and I was kind of more focused on really getting ahead, and kind of trying to
What do you think?
achieve the longer
What?
term dream.
Why do you think you were driven to be like that? Was it something your dad instilled in you? Was it just genetic? What do you? Was it like? Because it sounds like your dad was a career guy, chasing these
Yeah.
opportunities around the world. Do you think that had an influence on you?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was. I really owe that drive and that kind of tenacity to my parents entirely. They kind of raised me, to have big dreams, and the having big dreams is one thing, and then kind of teaching me how to go after them. And I think kind of growing up, they really taught me how to be driven and how to be focused.
But
Um,
how do they do that? I'm curious because I'm a father of three young kids.
yeah, yeah.
How do they do that? Was it more of a hey, just try your best, that's all that matters, or was it a
No, no.
no?
it
It's like
was it was it was much more deliberate than that.
you need to drill on these things. Like you need to be excellent in math, you need to be excellent in written, oral.
It was interesting. They I guess they like raised me in a way where I was just extremely competitive. So I used to play soccer growing up.
Me too. Yeah.
And I love the game, and I love playing, and winning is always a great feeling. And so I mean I played forward, and there'd be games where like, hey, I scored a goal, and I'd come and tell my dad when I got home, like, hey, I scored a goal today. He's like, why didn't you score two? And so that was always the mindset. It's like, why aren't you doing better? No matter how good you're doing, why aren't you doing better? Why aren't you? And it wasn't to kind of put me down. It's like, hey, you can get to the next level, and I'm gonna make sure you get there. And so it was always, you got to get one rung higher on the ladder. No, even if you got a 97 on the test, why didn't you get 100? It was
So that sounds kind of exhausting. Like your dad keeps pushing you and pushing you. Did you feel that way, or did you like the push?
It I think in the moment it can be like growing up, it could get maybe a little frustrating. You're kind of you come and achieve, something, whatever it is, you're proud of something that you did, and then it doesn't seem to be quite enough for this person that you respect and kind of hold in the highest regard. But looking back at it, I would not have had it any other way.
What about brothers and sisters? Were they similar? Do you have any brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have a younger brother, and he is getting to that point where he's a freshman at IU, but he's getting to the point where he's getting really competitive. He's getting to the point where it's not even other people's stand. And I think that was the difference. Me growing up, when I got to a point where the the normal standard that other people measured themselves by like was not applicable to me. Like there was like I was always holding myself to a much higher standard and always striving for that. And
Can
that's
you
what
give an
my brothers.
example? Give an example of that? Like
Yeah.
you mean like you mean by high school, like in grades and stuff like that, or something else?
In kind of, all aspects. It was always like I want to do the best that I can.
Mhm.
And let's say, my that's a good question. What is
Because
a good example to
because like
share
I
for
mean,
that?
you're talking about soccer, right? And you said,
Yeah.
oh, he'd come back and be like, so were you like training like an extra 2 hours a week? Were you getting up at 5 a.m. to train? Like what were you doing to get better?
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Or did you just like try your best and train, but like academics were a focus, were the main focus?
yeah, academics was always the main focus. So maybe let me
Sorry to
so
dive so
in
much into your pre banking career. It just
yeah,
it fascinates me because your background's unique in terms of like the world travel and all this stuff and
right.
idiosyncratic. So it's different from what I've talked to. So I'm
Yeah,
trying to unpack a little bit of like your
no, of
life.
course. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let so in Australia I was part of the IB program,
Mhm.
and as part of that program, I was in like one of the part of our math class we had to do a real world research project and apply some of the theory and concepts and lessons that we were learning to kind of a real world problem. um, and I at this point, everyone was the teacher had given us a couple of options, 10 or so different, real world things that we could go apply math to. Some of them were like roulette. Some of them were to like horse racing or something like that, statistics and so forth. And, we always had the freedom to do our own thing as well. And I'm like, these things were all kind of, you could go and find papers online that would basically kind of do all the work for you if you wanted. But I wanted to do something that was much more relevant to me and much more relevant to my passions. And so I tried to apply it to the stock market. I tried to do like a quantitative analysis of how to build sort of a high performing portfolio. Like what kind of quantitative methods can you? And this is before I even knew what I was talking about. And
Yeah,
and
this is as a high
and
school student.
this is as a high school student.
Yeah.
I didn't really know a lot of the stuff that I was talking about, but it wasn't just enough for me to do what was required. I wanted to do kind of above and beyond what other kids were kind of maybe thinking about or thought capable of. And I went and talked. I tried to make connections to real world like finance professionals to kind of get good guidance on something like this. And I didn't get a
Yeah.
good grade on the project, by the way, at all. But I probably spent a cumulative like of like 150 hours, across like 2 to 3 weeks, like putting this together, just because I had so much dedication for it, because I wanted to learn, and that was all. That was the only thing that was relevant to me. What the grade is important, but I also wanted to make sure that, hey, I was doing something I was really excited about, and I was learning about it, and I was getting better at it, and it was at a level that other people were not doing. It
Sure.
was different. It was differentiated.
For sure. So tell me a little bit about like why UNC, obviously strong finance program, right?
Exactly.
Was
Yeah.
that just it, or like did you apply elsewhere and you felt like that was the best shot at getting into finance?
Yeah, well, so I definitely applied elsewhere. So we knew we were coming to Michigan. My dad had found another job in Michigan as we all kind of transitioned stateside. And so, University of Michigan was definitely a top choice to kind of get that in-state tuition. And Ross School of Business also has a very high name,
For sure.
but unfortunately got waitlisted there. And
Okay.
UNC was, I'd applied to a lot of the Ivy League schools. I applied to 15 schools, got waitlisted at two and rejected from all the others, all in the same day, which
Oh,
was which was totally a slap in the face. Because I had spent like all my high school
did
career
you
kind of
did you
shooting for the Ivies,
did
but
you feel
didn't
like
get there.
there was a little bit of shock? And looking back now with a little bit more wisdom at like your applications and knowing kind of the game a little bit, do you feel like there was a piece missing there?
Yeah, one thing that I've thought about this a lot. It was it's a little bit of a traumatic experience, but
The
I
essays?
thought
Something with the
the
essays?
my ACT score wasn't the highest, so I think that was one piece. And I
Yeah.
think the other thing that probably, the admissions committees at all these places were thinking about was I was very, very focused on in my essays and that I knew what I wanted to do. And I was just very determined. I want to be in finance. I want to do M&A. This is the world I want to be a part of. And I want to kind of
It's
come and
like
take
it's like the
advantage.
type of kid they really like to hate. Kind of, is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, I think I just don't think they believed me. Like they were like, what 17, 18-year-old kid knows he wants to do this? He's just kind of, it maybe didn't come across as sincere. He's just trying to say what we think we want him to say, or trying to sound too mature or too professional,
But
or
you were
or
sincere.
whatever. But I was very sincere, and I guess they wanted an all-rounded student, kind of quote unquote. That's sort of the tagline, and I wasn't interested in that. I knew what I wanted, and I was kind of ready to go after it. And then 2 weeks went by. I didn't have a college to go to. I hadn't heard back from UNC yet,
Mhm.
and so I was like applying to all these like state schools and stuff like that, like just to kind of have my bases covered. And dude, thank God UNC accepted me.
Yeah.
And got to go to a very prestigious institution
Yeah. So tell
kind
me
of 2 weeks
about
later.
yeah, tell me about specifically the how you ended up getting that sophomore gig. Did you apply online, network? Tell me a little bit of that whole process because I've already taken up a bunch of your time. And with background, I want to get into the nitty gritty now of how you landed it. You obviously had like you knew early on. Do you feel like that was a huge advantage just knowing you wanted banking right away?
Yeah, that I think that like I'm not smarter than the next person. I don't have, more connections than the next person. Like the only advantage I had coming into college is I knew exactly where I wanted to be. I knew what classes I wanted to take, like I had researched what professors I wanted to get close to and learn from.
Hmm.
And like literally week one, I went to the corporate finance professor's office. His door was locked and he was on a phone call. I waited outside his office for probably 4.5 hours, just to get 5 minutes with the guy to tell him I wanted to maybe sit into his class and be part of the student run fund, which he was overseeing. And he gave me 5 minutes, and I through that conversation, I was able to get into the student run fund as a freshman, just to kind of show that drive, which was an incredible opportunity. And it gave me a lot of exposure to seniors who were great mentors to me as well,
And
because they
then
had
once they were in the banks, it's a huge that's exactly the people
yeah,
you need the relationships with.
exactly. Yeah, no, that
Yeah.
was huge because they helped me connect to people, in the banks, and then also there were two seniors in particular who were incredibly pivotal to helping me prepare for those interviews, teaching me how to network. I was a freshman going to all sorts of job fairs and networking events, just looking for some opportunities that someone would, be ready to give me, and no one would give a freshman, the time of day, right? Like
Right.
they're not hiring freshmen for internships. But I failed in a lot of those like networking events. I didn't know how to behave or how
Yeah.
to portray myself. But because I did it at such an early point in the college career, I was able to learn from those mistakes and be much more effective
You're more
next
polished
year,
the
more
sophomore.
polished. Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
I think that was like a huge advantage as well, like relative to other kids. I just knew I made mistakes early and could capitalize on them when it actually counted.
So tell me when
Um,
did it count and how did you start applying? Was there any sort of online thing going on for sophomore internships or how did you even land that?
yeah, yeah, it's funny. There was one of the two seniors I talk about. He connected me to an analyst at Morgan Stanley, and it was like a first round interview, and he prepared me exactly for the technical answers that were going to be asked, like word for word.
Yeah.
And I go into this interview and I'm nervous. And it was a phone call. And so I've got like papers of answers just like thrown across my dorm room, like ready to flip to any
You're like,
single one. Yeah, exactly. And
one sec.
I was over prepared for this call, and it's not that I didn't get the answers right. It's like it didn't sound like I knew what I was talking about. Like it didn't seem that I was confident in the answers I was giving. And I didn't get kind of moved on to the next round. So the senior kind of comes up and he's like, dude, I literally gave you the interview word for word. Like, if you're not serious about this, I'm not going to help you. And like, that's kind of when I kicked it into gear. And this was as a second year student.
Yeah, so like you were kind of like, he gave you basically told you what they were going to ask you as technical questions, like what type of evaluation, or DC.
Right.
You still kind of fumbled through it because you didn't really understand. You hadn't drilled enough.
That's exactly right. And it was a good wake up call. And I was applying to these things as a junior, but only in my second year of college. I had a year and a half of college already finished coming into UNC. And so I was applying to these things as a junior with the intention of graduating early. And kind of after that experience, there was a coffee chat with Bank of America. And there was a guy in leverage finance who, for whatever reason, took a liking to me. And he was kind of like a white knight. Like he really like pushed me through the process, helped me make some really good connections.
But tell me about that. You mean just from the coffee chat, like you sitting around and with a group of other eager beavers kind of huddling around him? He liked you?
No, so it was like a one-on-one thing.
How did you get the one-on-one?
We had like a UNC like portal, and you would like apply, and then like you send your resume in, and they select X amount of kids to kind of join these kind of coffee chats. And yeah, it was a great opportunity, and Bank of America was hosting it. And you get like 10-15 minutes with kind of a banker from Bank of America, and it's like a networking call, but you get sort of one-on-one attention. And
so who was this guy or gal? Was it an associate, an analyst?
Yeah, he was
in LevFin. You said, but associate level, you think, or VP?
Yeah, I think he was a VP. I think he was a VP at the time. Yeah.
Why do you think he liked you?
I think it was really just like my determination, tenacity, and drive. Like it was. I was always.
But how did you show that? Like, you don't want to come across as a hardo too, right?
It was all about the attitude of learning. I think that is the key when you're having these conversations. Is you're exactly right. You don't want to come across as a know-it-all, or like a try-hard, or trying to brown nose these people. It's you're doing a job that I want to be good at, and I just really want to learn how to be good at it. I was very like upfront. I don't know what I'm doing, but these are the steps I've taken in my college career to kind of learn more. And these are the reasons why I want to be in the industry. Having a great story for why you want to be, in an investment banking role, and kind of what you want to learn and what excites you about it.
What did you say back then? Just want to learn, blah, 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 be around smart people, that type of thing? Or something else?
I think it has to be more personal than that. So I had done a internship at a company called Brasscraft. It is a company owned by Masco, which is a large sort of, kind of building products company.
Mm-hmm.
But Brasscraft was a plumbing manufacturer. That's what I did as a freshman. My freshman summer was doing. I was a sales intern at a plumbing manufacturer. Weird experience, but and so I didn't want to do sales.
I was a assistant manager of a yoga studio, so hey, don't feel bad. Keep going.
Yeah.
You do what you got to do to pay the bills.
Yeah, exactly. And they had me doing kind of sales and marketing type stuff, but that was just kind of the job description. I went to kind of my boss and saying, hey, I'm happy to do my regular job, but what I really want to do is kind of M&A stuff. And you guys have stuff that you're doing on the M&A side. And they kind of gave me a couple projects. They were looking at some companies in like Brazil and
cool.
And some companies in Chile, and I just kind of ran with it. And try to build models around it and create a presentation. And, so I used that to my advantage, saying, hey, I had a little bit of M&A experience as part of my freshman summer internship. And it was great to be able to.
Did you like set that up, like knowing that this company would allow you to do that, knowing they had some corp dev going on?
No, I didn't. I just walked into my manager's office and I'm like, this is what I want to do. Do you guys have any like projects? And they're like, we're not really serious about it, but we're happy to let you kind of
just let you
around.
pretend and like go off in your little corner and say, we're gonna go buy. We're not really gonna buy these companies, but go ahead.
Free work for them. So what's nothing for them to lose.
And, no, that's actually a great lesson, that if you can kind of carve out your own internship where you're working for a company, manufacturer, go look at the potential targets for them.
Yeah, once you're in the door, you can do whatever you want.
Assuming they're just having you there as a favor anyways.
Right.
So you can actually carve out your own M&A internship or corp dev.
Internship. Right. Exactly.
I put that in air quotes for people who are listening. All right, cool. No, that's smart. It's smart because sophomore, there are these coffee chats, you can start pointing to that.
And what I said was, look, it was very rewarding to be part of something that could impact the future of this particular company. But what I realized was what one thing that I feel like would be much more fulfilling was to be able to do that on a larger scale for more companies, and then kind of on a global level as well, which investment in banking gives you kind of an opportunity to do. So that was kind of the reason. It's like, hey, I had this experience, it was great, but this was something that was missing from that. And I think investment banking can fill that gap for me in terms of, a career reward or kind of professional fulfillment.
So he liked it.
He liked it, and he really saw that. I think he kind of really saw the sincerity of how much I wanted this and that I was willing to grind for it.
Yeah.
And one thing that I even today I still try to talk to a lot of kids who are trying to break into Wall Street, and all I tell them is like, you have to keep networking and you have to be on that grind, because at the end of the day, all it takes is just one guy who's willing to go to bat for you, and that will be kind of your doorway into the opportunity. And so you just have to keep trying to get as many at bats as possible.
So after that coffee chat, he kind of pushed you through to he got you to a super day.
Well, he got me to a first round interview, and he connected me to.
You're ready for the technicals this time.
This time I was ready.
And did they ask you technicals? Do you remember?
They did, yeah. They did, yeah. They just the basic ones, that valuation methods and so forth. And he also connected me to a couple like kind of full-time analysts. And every person I talk to, I always try to, make them a mentor or get mentorship from them. And that's a good way to build a much more personal relationship with them, where they're invested in your growth as well, rather than just sort of a standard networking call. And I never see these conversations as like, hey, I don't want to talk to this guy again if he's not going to give me a job. It's, you never know when these people are going to come in hand, or when they have an opportunity down the road.
Yeah, could be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I always try to construct the conversation to be a very long-term relationship building process. And a lot of those full-time analysts help me prepare for the first round, and they help me prepare for Superdays. And I think I just got really lucky in the Superdays.
Were they alum?
Yeah, they were UNC alum. Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense. They're helping you out. Okay.
They're helping me out. Yeah.
Were they helping out a lot of other kids from UNC as well, though?
Definitely. Yeah.
So it wasn't.
It was a good network.
Okay, so then you kind of, they're helping you prep, and you said you got lucky on the Super Days. Explain what the Super Day was like, and why do you say you got lucky?
Yeah, the super show is funny. So Super Day they flew me to New York, and it was with three kind of 45 or so minute interviews in person. And the first one was with the COO of a group, and I was like, holy cow, this is like a C-suite kind of thing. Like, this person is super senior and I'm a sophomore basically. I'm like, it was intimidating, but she was, I cannot exaggerate this enough, the nicest person I've ever spoken to. She was so helpful, and she was so informative, and was ready to be a mentor, was ready to help me learn and give me good guidance.
Even in the interview, you felt like that?
Yeah, even in the interview. It didn't feel like she was trying to grill me. It felt like she was trying to get to know who I was and what I'm passionate about.
So how did you come across as not closed-minded, like narrow, or how should I say, laser-driven, focused finance guy? How did you come across as like more of a normal human being? No, just kidding. How did you do that?
I did it. I don't think I did.
Do you think it hurt you with the interview with her? Do you think she was looking for the more well-rounded person?
No. She's still a strong mentor to me today. Like, we're still in touch even after having left BAML. She was someone who I really leaned on and relied on through my internships and through my full-time career. And I just think it really goes to show how valuable it is to formulate conversations with people in a way where they're kind of long-term based.
But like in that interview specifically, what was she looking for? Like, what did you give her because it sounds like she was trying to get to know you as a person. So she wanted to know what motivated you, that type of stuff. So tell me about that.
Yeah.
What types, it was a lot of fit behavioral type questions.
Yeah. She was like, kind of, what are you passionate about, kind of outside of finance? And to that I answered, yes, I'm very kind of driven professionally, but at the same time, like, my ultimate goal, like, I will not be satisfied or content in my job if I'm not able to continuously guide other students or guide other people into their dreams and passions. That's always been my underlying life goal, is to help people, become better than they think possible. And so I kind of told her about that and kind of my association with the Finance Society at UNC and all of the things I was doing there to kind of help educate kids for kind of careers in Wall Street, whether it was financial modeling workshops or running, investing competitions or networking seminars and stuff like that. And kind of doing, like, I created a mentorship program as part of the Finance Society. So talking about those kinds of things, I think really, really spoke to her. And, at the very end of the conversation, I said, look, I really want to be like you. Like that, like, you have gone so far in your career. Like, that's who I want to be at your level one day. Like, what do you think I should be doing now to get there? And I'd love to I kind of asked her point blank, like, I'd love to have your mentorship kind of in the long run. I think that'd be incredibly valuable to me if you're open to it. And I don't think kids should be afraid of doing that or nervous of kind of asking people they admire to really guide them. I think especially professionals who are kind of
but it sounds like, just talking to you right now, like, that's almost a super risky play. I agree with you 100%, by the way. I think the direct, like, genuine, like, eye contact, I'd love for you to guide me, like, like, just having that humble, like, genuine delivery when you're in that moment is actually super powerful to land the job.
I really think so. I think that's the right word. I think it really shows, like, your willingness to learn, which kind of leads into humility, which also plays into the kind of culture that Bank of America was trying to cultivate. And
do you feel like that really, you nailed it with that? Because, well, you ended up getting the job, but tell me, did you feel like it went well, or was she a little put off by it, or she just loved it, you think?
I think we had a really great conversation. I would think so, considering she's still talking to me today. I hope she likes me.
So okay. So keep going. So you had that one interview, and then what?
And then I got very lucky with the second one. He was a managing director from UNC in the left fin group. So that was just, could not have asked for a better opportunity there. And that was a pretty, standard interview, like, very behavioral, very fit based. The one question that he asked me, and the answer that I was the most proudest of, said, what's your favorite class? And, like, that's such a tough, like, question to answer, but I feel like because I was so determined for finance, I felt like I had a good answer for that. I said, the ones I'm not registered for, those are my favorite classes. Because what I did in school is I would skip the classes that I was actually supposed to attend that I had on my schedule, and I would go to the business school and sit into high-level finance, like investment classes, like MBA classes, just to learn. And I would talk to the professors and be like, look, I'm not in your class. I just want to learn. This is what I came to college for, is to learn these things, and I want to learn them as fast as I can. I would do the homeworks. I would take the midterms for no credit. And I would do, like, relatively, I could have done better in the classes I was registered for, but I was like, hey man, I'm paying a ton of money to learn. I'd rather not sit into like English 101. I'd rather go sit into kind of investments. And I thought that was like, he found that to be a pretty unique answer, and kind of just showed that I really wanted this.
So did you not party at all in college? Just you're taking like double course load?
Yeah, literally. Not.
Oh my gosh. So
I,
you're just like, is this realistic advice I should be giving my listeners? Can anyone work as hard as you?
I mean, look.
You were already doing 80-hour, 100-hour weeks. It sounds like in college.
If you have the passion for it, if you really want it, then it's not going to feel like hard work. It's just going to feel like this is what you enjoy doing.
You're really interested in it. So you sitting in classes, doing the midterms, doing all the extra work. You know, you'd probably quickly go through your English, you write your essays as fast as possible, and then
exactly. No, Saturday night we had what's called a capital markets lab, and there was a point in time where I was learning how to do like 3-statement modeling. So like most Saturday nights I was in there till like 3 a.m. like in this like big building all by myself, like just like figuring out why the balance sheet isn't balancing. Like that's what I was doing for like a whole semester.
So tell me a little bit about like social life though. Like, did you feel like you were missing out at all?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was.
Like looking back, especially now that you've been out of school for, what, 3.5, 4 years almost?
Yeah, that's about right. I got very lucky with I did random roommates as a freshman. And I got very lucky with the guys I was rooming with. They were all weird and quirky, just like me. They weren't partiers. They had no intention of kind of being part of like the Greek life and so forth. And so we all just hung out together, and that was like we built really close relationships through that. And so I don't think I missed out on building great relationships and missed out on building really good friends that I connect well with. They were all like nerds and weirdos just like me. So I felt like we got along. And I was okay not being associated with kind of the partying kind of lifestyle.
It's totally like, you were having fun. You were doing what you wanted to do.
It was very much a conscious decision. Like, yes, it would
feel like pressure to do what you were doing.
No.
It was like a pure drive, like a pure curiosity, and like
exactly,
you were spending the time you wanted to spend. So more power to you. That's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
So okay, so you have this COO. You kind of do the hard sell at the end, like the connection. You have a great answer for the UNC, like basically showing him through like what you're doing, explaining to him like, well, it's not the courses I'm registered for, it's all these other extra coursework I'm doing. The guy's probably like, whoa, this kid's like serious.
Right.
So 2 really strong ones. So how about that third interview?
The third interview was interesting. I actually can't recall how that actually went. It's a little bit of a blur, but I do remember coming out of that interview like feeling a little iffy about it. I didn't feel like as strong as I did on the other interviews. But I think that was just, you're always just nervous going into interviews, and then you never feel like the interview went as well as you think. So I think it was really just a function of that. But I got the offer. But I got the offer. I got the offer, which I was thrilled about. It was 8 years of work, 8 years of kind of determination culminating to that one moment, which is great.
You must have felt incredible.
Yeah, it was great.
So like going into the summer, you were just ready, gung-ho, ready to work, do whatever.
Yeah.
And was it brutal hours? Was it tough with that sophomore summer?
Yeah, it's the one advice I have for any interns going into an internship is just to relax. That was yes, my drive and tenacity got me to that stage, but it actually backfired on me on the job. Once you're on the job, like you really want to relax and be much more easygoing, and you want to internalize that urgency, and you want to internalize that excitement and kind of make it shine in your work product. I think I initially, and it's really just a question of maturity. I just didn't have the experience and time that I needed, but
you were like,
I was.
But yeah.
I was. It was.
You couldn't even drink yet.
Exactly. It was.
Yeah.
It was like I was at Disney World. Like I was just too happy. Like I was grinning ear to ear at like 8:30 in the morning and 2 a.m. at night, and people were like, "Yo, this kid it's too much." That was my midsummer review. Was like you're too overwhelming. And you need to dial it back. and they were like, look, we love the positivity, we love the attitude. It's just kind of being situationally aware, and being self-aware. And I thought that was really good advice. And
like if there's an analyst that like hates his life, you shouldn't be like bouncing around, smiling around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly right. That's what it was. And look, it was really good advice, and I really tried to.
Well, you ended up getting a return offer for junior summer.
Well, so that was the thing. So
yes, tell me what happened.
So I was competing for a full-time offer that first summer.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
Because I was telling you I was a.
Oh, that's right. You were junior. You were only doing 3.5 years or whatever.
And so that I didn't get a full-time offer. They kind of put me on the wait list.
Ooh. And you think because of that overeagerness?
Well, it was a little bit of that. They said that I improved a ton, and the second half of the internship, I was really able to take that feedback and really improve on it.
Mm-hmm.
But that summer was a little unfortunate. I think it was across the street. Like no one hired like a high percentage of interns. Like my group only gave like 40% offers.
Oh, wow.
That year. And I think it was kind of like Morgan Stanley, I don't think even hired like a single UNC intern that summer. So I think it was just across the street.
Was it like a deep depression for you?
Well, yeah, it was sad. It was definitely sad. It was very disappointing, but I think I had dealt with failure enough to that point where, I knew how to kind of process it and kind of run with it. But look, what I told them is like, hey, I understand. They said like, look, we really want you. There just isn't enough headcount, and we have to put you kind of on the wait list. And the kind of person in charge of that was really fighting with HR to kind of open up, 1 or 2 additional spots for me as part of the group. But, there didn't seem to be kind of room there. And what I told him was like, I could have not easily, but I could have went and I started applying for like other full-time jobs as like part of like middle market boutique banks and looking for other opportunities. But I was kind of thinking about the long game. And I said, look, I can go and do an extra semester at school and come back as an intern if you'd be okay with that. And I think that'd be a really good way to kind of show my maturity development. I would have sort of another year kind of develop on the feedback that you gave me, and kind of turn it around and be much more professional the second go around if they were open to it. Because from their perspective, it just one less intern that they have to worry about hiring.
Yeah, for sure. Smart pitch.
And so that was like a really good pivot for me. So they weren't able to open up one spot, so they immediately gave me a return internship offer. And I wasn't losing anything by extending my career, my college career by a semester. I was still graduating early, like I had always planned. Instead of 2.5 years, I graduated in 3 years. Like not a big deal. And so I came back for a second internship and did very well in that internship. And
wait a second, you were going to graduate in 2.5 years, plus you're taking a bunch of courses outside of your normal course load.
Yeah.
So tell me how many hours a week were you in classes and how many hours a week? So it sounds like you were doing about 80 hours schoolwork a week.
Yeah, I don't know if I was doing like double the class load. I think every semester I would pick, 1 or 2 classes that I really wanted to go sit into and learn that weren't part of.
Just crazy.
Yeah, so I would like pick 1 or 2. There was.
That's fine. I get it. We don't have to harp on it. So okay, so you're basically you come back, you do another summer. When you said like you really took it to heart, this feedback, being more professional. Were you being like super immature that first year? Like, was it a party thing, like where like you were inappropriate, like going out with the group? You didn't know how to.
Oh no,
nothing like that. It was just more like overeager beaver kind of stuff.
Yeah, just like how to conduct yourself in the office.
Can you give an example? Because there might be other kids listening that they don't really understand what you mean by that.
Yeah.
I think I get it, but yeah, any example of like where they were like, "What were you doing here?" or something like
that? It was really just like how I presented myself. It was I guess like the intensity and the drive and the desire should come across in your work product. It should be in the quality of your work. It shouldn't be in an outward, like I think I was communicating it too much. That like this is like I love this. This is where I want to be.
Got it.
Or like like I'm having like such a good time. Like I
You
think
were
I was
verbalizing it. You were verbalizing.
Exactly. I think
And it was
I was
getting you were getting on people's nerves from like this kid. He like won't stop talking about how much he loves this job, and there's guys like that are like dropping out, burning
who hate
out.
it. Yeah. Exactly.
And they're like, I can't
So
stand this kid. I don't want to be around him or whatever. Like he won't
that's
shut up
right.
about how much he loves banking or whatever. So I got it. Okay, so that's actually a really important point to people who like do find themselves in your seat, who really know that they really love it. It's almost like the curse of the 4.0. It can hurt you.
Yeah.
If it's taken to the
Definitely.
extreme. Or
Definitely.
if it's not coupled with like a more friendly personality. If you come across as a robot with a 4.0, it can hurt you.
Right. No, yeah, so it was like, you're super friendly guy and like you work really hard, but this is like the one, it was like a soft skills issue.
Yep.
That
Okay,
I
so
just
that's
didn't
really
have.
helpful. No, that's really helpful because that's important for people to hear, because there could be people who are going into this like gung ho. They're like gonna have a grin,
Right.
a shit-eating grin at 4 a.m. You know, like.
And like it was like in my emails were like too positive, like overly positive, and it's like so it kind of comes
You're like
back
exclamation
to like,
point, exclamation point, exclamation point on like everything.
It's kind of comes back to like me applying to colleges. Like they just didn't believe that I loved it that much. And yeah,
That's interesting, man.
They called when I was called back for the second internship, they were like, yeah, like this kid actually just loves it that much. And so I think kid just actually loves it.
They gave you a full-time offer. They're like, we have a workhorse coming.
Exactly. And then I graduated in 3 years, and then I started early. I started 6 months earlier than my class.
Not like let's take 6 months to go travel. Nothing like that. You had traveled enough in your early.
Traveled enough. Was ready to start working and then move forward in my career, and so started early.
So hungry to go all the time. To go.
No, man.
Yeah, and are you still like that now that you're in PE? Are you still like that?
Yeah, I'm still like that.
Okay, so
I'm just
you're different.
Yeah, definitely different. I'm never satisfied. I always want more, and I always kind of want it now. Which
But in what sense? Like, what's driving you? Is it the money? Is it the feeling of? Well, I mean, it's easy to say no. No one knows who you are. So like, but is it the money?
Yeah.
Is it the feeling of like learning and like you want to just accelerate faster? Is there some sort of deep-seated like feeling of like I need to do this because to prove like to my family? What's going on?
Oh yeah. No, it's
You think it's like something under like have you thought about that? Have you stepped back and be like, why am I so much more? I know you said you set levels and bars for yourself that are not normal for other people, and so I get that. But there's a lot of hardworking people on Wall Street, and even next to them, it sounds like you were extreme.
Yeah, it's definitely not the money. I always told people I'll do this job for free, like just cover my rent. I'm happy to work the same number of hours and I'll still work just as hard. It's just like it's not about the money. It's not about the titles or the promotion. Like there's no like family pressure or anything like that. Like I have said, this is the career and this is the passion that I have realized and want to dedicate myself to. And so I want to do everything that I possibly can to be the best I can at that.
I mean, you were, and then you ended up at BAML for 3 years.
1.5 full time.
Oh, sorry, that's right. 1.5. So 1.5 full time. So tell me about like if it's something you love so much, you started early. Why leave after 1.5 years before the 2-year commitment's over?
Yeah, definitely. So I always, everyone was kind of, and I always tell this to like other people I speak to who are kind of starting banking is don't get caught in the rat race. Everyone thinks about banking as a stepping stone to PE. They do the 2 years of banking and they start recruiting a month of starting their banking full-time job for PE, and they've got many kids have locked up, PE offers before their first 6 months are even done in banking, and they don't even know what the job is yet. And I don't think that does justice to the job and to your learning experience, because you've kind of written off the job before you even started it. And you just don't you should make that decision for yourself. A lot of kids think PE is the more prestigious career or there's more money in it and so forth. And that I was never about that. I always wanted to make decisions for myself and on my own terms. And so I wanted to make sure I gave banking its full due. I did it, very diligently without even thinking about recruiting for a whole year. And then after a year, I kind of reflected. I'm like, what do I like about this job? What I not like about this job? And
what was that? What did you not like?
Yeah, so I think for someone who wants more and always wants more, I think at a certain point you feel like you want more responsibility, and sometimes you may not be able to get it, or you want to be, take a little bit more independence in certain projects, or get some. And it wasn't like, hey, I wanted to be treated like an associate, like I wanted to be an associate. I just wanted, an opportunity here or there to kind of act as an associate, or kind of have the associate hat on and kind of learn those skills. So
you should
that
have been at a middle market.
you
should have been in a smaller. You should have been in a smaller place where they were like desperate for somebody to step up.
Right. And
but anyways,
my whole thing.
Sorry, but go ahead.
Oh, sorry. My whole thought process was like, try to maybe, like work at the sort of associate level in certain projects, and then that would kind of put you in good position to get the promotion. And, it's a very structured environment. And so there's a hierarchy to it. There's kind of a chain of command, and you kind of stick to that. And that's kind of, a good, efficient way to kind of run deals. And so that was one thing that I was like, in my next role, I really want to have an opportunity where I'm kind of, it's more entrepreneurial in the sense that they want me to be a critical thinker. They want me to take a view. I'd kind of own the model. I own the analysis. And I always, my initial interest and spark in finance really came from the investing side of things. I liked creating a thesis. I liked doing the research. I liked, putting money behind it and seeing if you were right. There was kind of a meritocracy to it. And it was a little bit more academic in nature. You're trying to discover the right answer. Whereas in banking, a lot of times an MD tells you, this is the answer, and we need to construct the assumptions to get there.
Right.
And so kind of having that realization, I just kind of recruited passively. Was not like, I didn't throw myself into it. I didn't like do a bunch of hours of like practice modeling or anything like that. I was like, hey, if I get something, I'll think about it. If not, I have a really good, I'm like in good standing here at my current job, and I'm enjoying the role. And I just got very fortunate with Calera Capital, like amazing culture, great group of people, and they were wanting me kind of have that critical thinking approach. I would, be invited to all of the meetings. I would be, talking to bankers, talking to lenders, get to go to the management meetings. Like they expected me, and I get to ask management questions, and no one thinks it's weird that like a 24-year-old kid is like asking the CEO of this company like hard pressing diligence questions on a business he's running, right? Like no one thinks it's like out of the ordinary. And I was looking for that kind of exposure. I was getting it a whole extra year and a half earlier than I would have in banking. And I kind of ran with it. It was a risk.
But first tell me a little bit about the recruiting process. So you weren't recruiting actively like at a bunch of places, but you were submitting your application or your resume through certain recruiters, or just through online?
Yeah, just through recruiters, just like headhunters.
And so did you have any other PE interviews prior to the offer, the one where you got an offer?
Yeah, I had made it
final rounds.
I with Aries, I had made it to the final round there, but I think they went with someone else. And then there was a credit fund I interviewed with, but I kind of quickly realized they were only doing senior secured term loans and holding for maturity, and that didn't really sound very thrilling or exciting to me. So I kind of took a pass on that after a couple of those interviews, and kind of quickly after that landed with Calera Capital. And they were really.
Were the interviews hard? Were the interviews hard?
No, I mean, yeah. The first couple were not hard, but there were obviously some technical ones. The Super Day interviews were tough. They were asking some very interesting questions that I was like, I didn't have like they're like, why is your ACT score so low? I'm like,
stress testing you, like, why is your ACT score so low? Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
But it was a good question. I think they knew it was low. It was definitely not as high as I'm sure some of the other candidates, and I think they just really wanted to see the mindset that I approached that with, and I think they appreciated that.
What did you say?
I told them, look, like, it's just like standardized tests are not my forte. It's just not how I think. Like I like to be in a more practical environment. I think that's how I learn. It's just not suited to how I learn and the way I like to think. But I'm much more like an application kind of oriented person, and so I don't necessarily do that well on kind of standardized tests, and I still don't do well on standardized tests today. I also just don't care about them.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, but you can't say that.
It's interesting. It's somebody so driven. You'd think that you could just drill and get a really high score.
Yeah, I just don't think, like, my mind just doesn't really.
It doesn't do well in this format. Yeah, time pressure or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not like a sort of read a textbook and regurgitate the answers kind of. I always did well in school, but that's because you would kind of read and you would there was an outcome. There was a reason why you were reading it, and you can kind of attach some kind of motivation to the academic work. Whereas on a standardized test, it's really just to like get a score. Like there isn't really like any other.
You should have just told yourself this is to get into college, and you should have told yourself this is. Oh, sorry about that. This is to get into. You didn't realize 6-7 years down the line they'd be asking you about why is your ACT?
My ACT score. No, it's even after having a private equity job, like I still like occasionally just to kind of keep relationships up with like headhunters.
Yeah.
Some headhunters will like reach out, like ones I haven't spoken to before, and I'll just take their call just to build a dialogue for kind of down the road. And be like, your resume doesn't have like your SAT or ACT. I'm like, how is this still relevant? Like, why is my standardized score still required? Like, haven't I proved it enough? Like having 2 jobs in finance.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable, man. I can't believe that this far out. So it sounds like it's been a good move for you. Probably using your brain a little bit more, being able to pick the brains of CEOs and CFOs.
Oh, absolutely.
It's pretty interesting. I agree.
Super rewarding professionally.
I think PE was super interesting. The 4 years I was doing it, so I agree with you. So yeah, and before we call, I think thank you for sharing your wisdom. Anything else, like looking back on your story? I know I kept you a lot longer than I said I would, but tell me a little bit about just any other final words of wisdom you'd want to share with the audience before we call it.
Yeah, I think looking back, like you don't have to do what I did to get into banking. You don't have to be like insane about it. There are plenty of kids who are, who want to do this, who love the job, who are very kind of dedicated to it, and still do normal things as college students and as human beings in general. And so
do you regret not doing that? Do you look back ever and like think, hey, I wish I had slowed down in college in 4 years?
No. I mean,
you were ready.
My friends always like, dude, like you missed out, like that whole senior year experience. Like we had so much fun. Like you left us all. Like I get so much grief from them about it, but it was a conscious decision I made. I knew what I wanted to do with my life, and I knew where I wanted to be in my career, and I kind of set out to do it. I made a choice, and at the end of the day, life is all about choices.
Mm-hmm.
And I made the one that I felt was much more aligned to me at the time. So yeah, maybe I missed out on some moments, and I'm sure I would have enjoyed those, and maybe regret that a little bit. But at the same time, I made a choice, and you got to live with it. And I feel like I turned out okay from that experience. But that would be my advice: is don't like listen to this podcast and think like you have to like eat, sleep, and breathe banking for 4 years of college. Like that as an artist, you have to put in the effort, but you can still have fun. I'm just like this wacko guy who just loves it to death, and it's just what really excites me.
Well, it's good to hear that you made it, because if you didn't, I would have been very scared. So no, but I think that's good advice. I think you do have to put in a lot of legwork, especially coming if you are kind of coming from a non-target. UNC is not, I wouldn't call a non-target, but it's not like the easiest place to get in from.
Right.
So you do have to put in a lot of work, even though it's a great school. So I think from there, it's one of those things where then you just have a lot less room for error if you're not in the right in the right groups and stuff like that. So you do need to put in a lot of work. So
Absolutely. And I guess the one thing that, if, not just related to banking, but just maybe careers in general, just life goals in general is, I don't know if college kids, my friends, the people I interacted with definitely didn't, but spend a disproportionate amount of time in college thinking about what makes you tick. Explore as much as you can and really find out what your passion is, because I'll always repeat, that's the only advantage I had coming in, is I knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And a lot
Huge
of kids
advantage.
in college don't know the answer to that. And so freshman year, just
We have something on our YouTube, what you're saying right now, that says, "This is a lie," in capitals. And it was a podcast, an interview like this of a kid that everyone was telling him, "Don't worry, you have time. Don't worry, you have time." He was like a sophomore, and he's like, "I think I want to do banking," and everyone's like, "It's too late."
Yeah, things get away from, especially now when recruiting is so early. So just spend, a lot of kids would be like pre-med and then like somehow turn into a business major by junior year. And it's like, now it's like tough to like find yourself into a good sort of career position out of college when you made that switch so late.
Yeah, you can still get there. I mean, you can still do a couple jumps.
It's not impossible.
It takes
nothing's
sometimes
impossible.
Even when you graduate, if you don't end up at the firm you want, you can still lateral. You can still keep
absolutely
networking and end up where you want to end up.
And that was also very encouraging. There's a lot of people in my group who like came from accounting backgrounds or consulting backgrounds. They just had to take one extra step than you would have otherwise, but they still made it.
Exactly. Well, listen, TarHeelMonkey, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks so much, Patrick. Really appreciate it, and happy to chat anytime. And anyone is more than welcome to reach out. Always happy to chat about any of these things.
And thanks to you, my listeners at Wall Street Oasis. If you have any suggestions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to send them my way, patrick@wallstreetoasis.com. And until next time.